The morning sunlight glinted off the freshly poured concrete like a middle finger to propriety. Jennifer Hartwell stood absolutely still, her breath caught between rage and disbelief. Where her pristine wildflower meadow had flourished just days ago, the Oak Ridge Homeowners Association had brazenly constructed a massive concrete foundation, 3 feet into her private property line. She burst out laughing, not a healthy, jovial laugh, but the kind of unhinged cackle that makes neighbors slowly back away. 20 years of dealing with Karen Merriweather, the HOA board president, had prepared her for this moment. Karen, a 57-year-old retired accountant with helmet-like gray hair and bifocals that seemed permanently perched in judgment, had finally crossed a line. "They didn't even have the decency to notify me," Jennifer muttered, pulling out her phone and snapping photographs. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the controlled fury of someone who knew exactly what she was going to do. The concrete slab was massive, easily covering 1,500 square feet. Jennifer could see the surveyor's markers she herself had professionally placed 5 years ago, now partially buried beneath the unauthorized construction. This wasn't just an HOA overreach, this was outright theft. Karen Merriweather had always been a bureaucratic tyrant. She'd previously fined Jennifer for having lavender plants that were 2 inches taller than regulation, and sent cease and desist letters about her excessively rustic split-rail fence. But this was an act of pure administrative arrogance. Jennifer's property sat on the northeastern edge of the Oak Ridge development, a slice of rural heaven just outside Denver. Her 5 acres were technically part of that HOA's jurisdiction, but with very specific easement restrictions. The concrete foundation violated at least 7 different clauses in the original community development agreement. She dialed her lawyer, Marcus Rodriguez, a man who had become more of a family friend than legal counsel after years of battling HOA nonsense. "They've done it this time," Jennifer said the moment he answered. "Complete construction without permission, 3 feet over my property line." Marcus's sigh was audible. "I'll start preparing the cease and desist. Do you have photographic evidence?" Dozens of shots, GPS tagged, surveyor markers clearly visible. What Karen and the HOA board didn't know was that Jennifer wasn't just any landowner. A former environmental lawyer turned landscape architect, she knew every inch of her property's legal boundaries and had meticulously documented everything for years. As she walked the perimeter of the unauthorized construction, her mind was already 5 steps ahead. This wasn't going to be a simple legal skirmish. This was going to be a full-blown war. Little did Karen know, Jennifer Hartwell was about to become the stuff of HOA legend. The concrete glistened, oblivious to the storm brewing around its unauthorized existence. Jennifer's smile was razor-sharp. "Game on," she whispered. The war room, as Jennifer had begun calling her home office, was a meticulously organized battlefield of legal documents, property surveys, and HOA correspondence dating back a decade. Marcus Rodriguez spread the documents across her antique oak table, his designer-reading glasses sliding down his nose as he examined each page. "They've been pulling this shit for years," he muttered, tapping a series of previous infractions. "Look at this 2018 incident with the Ramirez family. Same pattern of unauthorized construction, same dismissive attitude." Jennifer nodded, her fingers tracing the edges of a thick binder labeled Oak Ridge HOA violations. Each tab represented a different homeowner who had been bullied, fined, or marginalized by Karen Merriweather's reign of bureaucratic terror. "We're not just fighting for me," Jennifer said. "We're fighting for every homeowner who's been steamrolled by these power-hungry administrators." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You sound like you're preparing for a revolution, not a property dispute." "Aren't they the same thing?" she quipped. The concrete slab was more than just an encroachment. It represented years of systematic overreach by the HOA board. Preliminary investigations revealed the foundation was part of a larger community improvement project that nobody had voted on, nobody had approved, and nobody seemed to understand. "They're planning something big," Jennifer told Marcus. This isn't just about adding a gazebo or a community center. The scale, the location, it doesn't make sense. Marcus pulled out his tablet, displaying satellite imagery and property maps. The foundation is positioned strategically. It's not just on your property, it's blocking potential access to the watershed easement you own. Jennifer's land wasn't just any plot. It contained a critical water resource that fed several downstream ecological systems. The HOA's improvement project could potentially disrupt an entire environmental corridor. "We need more than just a cease and desist," she said. "We need to expose them." Their strategy began taking shape. Marcus would file immediate legal injunctions to halt construction. Jennifer would leverage her environmental law background to challenge the project's ecological impact. They would make this more than a property dispute. They would make it a matter of public environmental concern. Karen Merriweather, they knew, would not go down without a fight. The HOA board meeting that evening would be their first real confrontation. Jennifer chose her outfit carefully: a tailored navy blazer, crisp white shirt, dark slacks. Professional, uncompromising, dangerous. "Ready to storm the castle?" Marcus asked, gathering his briefcase. Jennifer's smile was predatory. "They have no idea what's coming." The Oak Ridge Community Center's meeting room felt like a powder keg moments before explosion. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the faces of 30 homeowners, each wearing an expression somewhere between curiosity and dread. Karen Merriweather sat at the head of the long folding table, her gray hair shellacked into an immovable helmet, fingers drumming an impatient rhythm on her leather-bound HOA rulebook. She wore a pastel blue blazer that screamed middle management and had an air of someone who believed rules was something other people should follow. The next item on the agenda, Karen announced with practiced condescension, is the Community Enhancement Project at Parcel 14B. Jennifer's hand shot up. "That would be my property." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Everyone knew Jennifer Hartwell, the landscape architect who'd been a persistent thorn in the HOA's side for years. Some respected her tenacity, others saw her as a troublemaker. "Ms. Hartwell," Karen said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness, "this project has been approved through proper channels." Marcus, sitting beside Jennifer, leaned forward. "Actually, no, it hasn't." He projected a series of documents onto the wall: property surveys, environmental impact assessments, detailed maps showing the precise boundary violations. Each slide was a precision-guided missile aimed directly at the HOA's credibility. The room went silent. These documents prove that the current construction violates not just property boundaries, but multiple environmental protection statutes, Marcus explained. The foundation encroaches 3 feet onto private property and sits directly over a critical watershed easement. Karen's face transformed. The pleasant bureaucratic mask cracked, revealing a landscape of panic and rage underneath. Her fingers, which had been neatly folded, now gripped the edge of her rulebook so tightly her knuckles turned white. "This is preposterous," she sputtered. "We have all the necessary approvals." Jennifer stood, her voice calm and devastating. "Show them." What followed was a masterclass in administrative breakdown. Karen scrambled through folders, her carefully maintained composure disintegrating with each passing moment. No permits, no signed agreements, nothing. The other board members began exchanging uncomfortable glances. This wasn't just a minor dispute anymore. This was a potential legal catastrophe. "I want to know," Jennifer said, her voice cutting through the room like a scalpel, "exactly who authorized this construction and how much money has already been spent." The silence was deafening. Marcus slid a thick document across the table. "These are preliminary injunction papers. Unless concrete evidence of proper authorization is presented within 72 hours, we will file a comprehensive lawsuit against the Oak Ridge HOA for unauthorized construction, environmental violations, and potential criminal trespass." Karen's world was collapsing, and everyone in the room could see it. What she didn't know was that Jennifer was just getting started. 3 days after the board meeting, Karen Merriweather launched her counteroffensive. It was as predictable as it was desperate. Jennifer found the first certified letter in her mailbox, its crisp white envelope practically vibrating with bureaucratic aggression. The HOA was attempting to fine her $5,000 for obstruction of community improvement projects and creating a hostile environment during official proceedings. She laughed, literally laughed out loud, startling her rescue border collie, Scout, who was napping on the front porch. "They've lost their minds," she told Marcus during their emergency video conference. The letter was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive legalese. Each paragraph was a thinly veiled threat, each sentence constructed to intimidate. But to Jennifer, it read like a confession of weakness. What Karen didn't know was that Jennifer had spent the last 72 hours systematically documenting every single interaction, every piece of communication with the HOA. Her digital archive was a forensic goldmine. "They're trying to intimidate us," Marcus said, scrolling through the document. Classic HOA power play. Threaten first, ask questions never. Jennifer's counterattack was surgical. Within hours, she filed a comprehensive complaint with the Colorado Real Estate Commission, detailing not just the current violation, but a pattern of systemic harassment and boundary violations dating back years. The concrete foundation became her primary Exhibit A. Local media caught wind of the story. A young investigative reporter from the Denver Gazette, Emma Rodriguez, no relation to Marcus, started digging. What she uncovered was far more interesting than a simple property dispute. The community improvement project wasn't just about adding infrastructure. Preliminary financial records suggested someone stood to make a significant amount of money if the foundation was completed. "Follow the money," Jennifer told Emma during their clandestine coffee meeting. HOAs don't just wake up and decide to build random foundations. What emerged was a complex web of potential kickbacks, insider dealing, and municipal corruption that extended far beyond Karen Merriweather. The concrete slab was just the tip of a very large, very problematic iceberg. Karen, meanwhile, was unraveling. Her carefully maintained persona of bureaucratic efficiency was crumbling. Board members were distancing themselves. Her husband, a quiet accountant named Robert, looked increasingly uncomfortable at home. The HOA had made a critical mistake. They had chosen to fight Jennifer Hartwell, a woman who didn't just know how to fight, but knew exactly where and how to strike. The concrete foundation remained, a silent monument to administrative overreach. But not for long. Jennifer's smile was razor-sharp. The real battle was just beginning. The first hint of something deeper came from an unexpected source, Robert Merriweather, Karen's husband. He appeared on Jennifer's doorstep on a misty Tuesday morning, looking like a man who had been sleepwalking through life and had suddenly awakened. His normally crisp accountant's suit was rumpled, his tie askew. "I need to talk to you," Robert said, not meeting her eyes. Jennifer's border collie, Scout, sat perfectly still, a silent guardian assessing the potential threat. After years of legal battles, Jennifer had learned to read people as carefully as she read property surveys. "Coffee," she offered. Inside her sun-drenched kitchen, Robert looked more like a man confessing to a crime than a witness. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "Karen's been doing this for years," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Not just with you, with others." The documents revealed a pattern of systematic land grabs, each more audacious than the last. The HOA had been slowly, methodically encroaching on private properties, using a combination of bureaucratic sleight of hand and intimidation. "There's a real estate development company involved," Robert continued. "They've been buying up small parcels, piece by piece. The HOA board gets kickbacks. Karen handles the paperwork." What emerged was a conspiracy that went beyond a simple property dispute. The concrete foundation on Jennifer's land wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a calculated strategy to acquire and redistribute land for future development. Marcus Rodriguez, when presented with the evidence, looked like a predator who had just been served the perfect meal. "This isn't just a civil matter anymore," he said. "This is potential criminal fraud." The local prosecutor's office became interested. Emma Rodriguez from the Denver Gazette started preparing a deep-dive investigative piece. Suddenly, Karen Merriweather's world was shrinking, her carefully constructed facade of respectability crumbling like cheap plaster. Robert's hands shook as he described how Karen had systematically manipulated HOA bylaws, used her position to intimidate homeowners, and worked with developers to slowly acquire prime real estate. "Why are you telling me this?" Jennifer asked. His response was simple and devastating: "Because someone needs to stop her." The concrete foundation on Jennifer's land was no longer just a personal battle. It had become a symbol of something much larger, a fight against systemic corruption, against the quiet erosion of individual property rights. Karen Merriweather had made a fatal mistake. She had chosen the wrong person to mess with. And Jennifer Hartwell was just getting started. The day of reckoning arrived with bureaucratic precision. Jennifer stood beside Marcus Rodriguez and 2 state investigators, watching as a team of forensic accountants descended on the Oak Ridge HOA offices. Boxes, everywhere boxes. Financial records, communication logs, property transfer documents, each cardboard container was a potential time bomb of evidence. Karen Merriweather sat in a small conference room, her once immaculate grey helmet of hair now disheveled, watching her carefully constructed world disintegrate. "Ms. Merriweather," the lead investigator said, his voice calm and professional, "we have evidence of multiple instances of fraud, unauthorized land acquisition, and systematic violation of homeowners' rights." The concrete foundation on Jennifer's land was no longer just a symbol. It was Exhibit A in a case that would redefine local real estate law. Robert Merriweather had become an unexpected ally. His meticulously kept personal records, hidden for years beneath tax forms and retirement planning documents, provided a trail of breadcrumbs that led directly to a complex web of corruption. The developers who had been working with Karen were not prepared for this level of scrutiny. One by one, they began to crumble. Phone calls were made. Lawyers were consulted. Plea deals were discussed in hushed, panicked tones. Emma Rodriguez from the Denver Gazette was there, her notebook filled with details that would become a landmark investigative piece. "This goes beyond one HOA," she told Jennifer during a quick coffee break. "This could change how we think about community governance." Jennifer watched Karen, who seemed to have shrunk several inches. The woman who had terrorized homeowners for decades now looked like a deflated balloon, all the air of authority suddenly gone. "How did you do this?" Karen finally asked, her voice a mixture of rage and disbelief. Jennifer's response was simple: "You forgot the most important rule of bureaucracy: always keep receipts." The concrete foundation remained on her property for now. Marcus was preparing a lawsuit that would not just remove the unauthorized structure, but would potentially bankrupt the entire HOA board. "We're not just fighting for me," Jennifer had told Marcus earlier. "We're fighting for every homeowner who's been bullied, every person who's been told they don't have a voice." As the investigators continued their work, Jennifer stepped outside. Scout, her border collie, waited by the truck. In the distance, the concrete slab sat like a monument to administrative overreach, a monument that was about to be demolished. Karen Merriweather's reign was over, but the story was far from finished. The concrete foundation was gone, removed by court order and broken into chunks that now served as erosion control along Jennifer's property line. The Oak Ridge HOA had been dissolved, its assets frozen pending multiple ongoing investigations. Karen Merriweather faced multiple charges: fraud, misappropriation of funds, violation of property rights. Her perfect bureaucratic world had collapsed like a house of cards. Robert had filed for divorce, turning state's evidence and providing the final pieces that would ensure Karen's prosecution. The developers who had been working with her were negotiating plea deals, their real estate empire crumbling beneath the weight of legal scrutiny. Jennifer sat on her front porch, Scout at her feet, watching the sunset paint the Colorado landscape in deep oranges and purples. The wildflower meadow had been restored, each bloom a quiet victory. Emma Rodriguez's investigative series had won a prestigious journalism award. The expose had sparked conversations about HOA governance across the state, with lawmakers beginning to draft new regulations to prevent similar abuses. "We did more than just fight a battle," Jennifer told Marcus during their celebratory dinner. "We changed the system." But something still nagged at her. The investigations had revealed a complex network of corruption, but Jennifer knew they'd only scratched the surface. How many other HOAs were operating with similar impunity? A letter arrived the next week, postmarked from a federal investigator's office in Denver. The envelope was thick, official, promising more revelations. Jennifer smiled. The concrete foundation might be gone, but the foundation of something much larger was just being laid. Scout lifted his head, sensing something was different. The wind carried a promise of future battles, of justice still to be served. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning.